So the rotation of the earth dictated what you did. You didn't set a start and stop time. Well, there wasn't even really technically time then, at least in the sense that like watch kind of time where we can calculate it down to extreme precision.
As like evidenced by our minute microscopies, which are like 99.9% never just a minute. Yeah, so you've got people like twiddling their thumbs who would rather be like getting stuff done, but they can't because you've twiddled your thumbs.
If you've got a bunch of people standing around because everything's done, well, that's a good thing. You are super efficient,
that's a great point. Like the work hard philosophy is counterintuitive because it invites burnout.
Oh man, so good.
You really emphasize the bone. All right, get your ass ready for another kitchen sink microscopy. I'm Casey Rochford, and get your ass over to that like button and the share button and the subscribe button too. Also ass.
Oh man, I don't think my ass is ready for any more KSM. So I'm Eric Rosenblatt, and don't forget, we write our own music. It's available out there on the information superhighway, like iTunes and Spotify and such places. So stick around to the end of the episode. Timestamp right down there, right now, I think. Yeah, there it is. Yeah, you can go to our website at ksmvidcast.com if you want to see the hub of all the hubbub. Yeah, and I guess that's my spiel for right now. So Casey, what do you want to talk about today?
Put your America Online disc in and load up kitchen sink microscopy.
900 free hours.
Remember, I had like 1,000 of those CDs, like from the newspaper.
Yeah. When that was going on with those CDs going out, it was kind of like, actually, in the early days, it was floppies. But those CDs where I worked at mailboxes, etc. And, we had a little kind of a mailbox section where people could rent mailboxes, right? Like to receive their mail. And everybody got those things, and they would throw them. We'd put them in the bin or in their little area, and they'd throw them away. And so there were thousands of those things like in the trash. And I remember I used to take those things, take them out of a little cardboard sleeve and fling them like frisbees and shatter them. It's like no one's ever going to use them,
Good times.
Mm-hmm.
The 90s.
Man, when you used to pay by the hour for the internet. Man.
Oh man, that's right.
That's crazy. Weird. Like Prodigy and stuff like that.
Prodigy. Yeah.
What was the other one? CompuServe.
Oh yeah.
That's early days.
Going way back.
Mm-hmm.
Well, before we get too nostalgic, I was thinking there's trying to pull ourselves out of this pandemic and stuff. There's a lot of, questions about work environments, and I think people are starting to come to the realization that we've all been kind of conditioned to believe that we need to work hard and that we need to like ask for time off instead of saying, hey, I'm not going to be here on such and such day or time or whatever. And we're made to feel guilty if we get sick, and just things like that. And I thought it would be interesting to talk about the other side of work ethic, like not letting yourself be walked all over.
Yeah. Oh, that's a really, really good idea. Man, you brought up some pretty good points too, things that I've thought about as well. That, yeah, we are conditioned, and it starts back in school, especially public schools where they have bells and schedules and punishments.
Permission to go pee.
Yeah. What the hell?
That baffles me. I've seen so many kids piss their pants because the teacher just like had a hair up their ass, and they're like, "No, you can't go."
Yeah.
Like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, how are you going to tell someone not to pee?
And it correlates to the work environment too. They're like, oh no, you have to. Well, not everybody, but there are jobs where you have to go to the bathroom on your break.
Mm-hmm.
If you suddenly have the urge, right, like the coffee's coming out both ends, like, nope, you gotta just tighten your cheeks, and hold it in till the 15-minute break comes up. Like, it's bullshit.
Yeah.
And that kind of it. I think that this whole pandemic thing and the working from home and all that stuff has really enlightened people, a lot of people, to the fact that we've sort of self-conditioned ourselves to have this kind of regimented structure, right? That everything has to, you got to punch a clock, you got to be at this time or that time, or things have to happen, in their own way, and you got to be busy every moment. You can't operate like you do at home.
Mm-hmm.
And also this kind of idea that we're beholden to our employer, and that they're somehow special. I mean, I guess they're employing you, so there's that, but that's where it should end, honestly.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, there's so many positions that don't really need to happen between the hours of 9 and 5 or whatever, or 8 and 5 or whatever. Like it used to be 9 to 5. Now we've kind of shifted it to 8 to 5, so we don't have to pay people for lunch.
And you used to get a paid lunch too back in those days. That's why
it was more like working 7 hours and you got like an hour paid for lunch. And
and that kind of, this is something that has been demonstrated too by this, is that people are actually more productive working from home, and are willing to just like, oh, you know what, I guess I'll just finish this project or this particular task that I'm doing, even if it's not on the clock or whatever, because it doesn't matter. You lose so much time to commuting that maybe people are like, well, I'll throw in another half hour because whatever, it doesn't really matter, because your normal commute might be like, well, up here in the northern I-5 corridor, your commute, you could burn easily 3 hours a day just getting to and from work.
I burn 4.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And depending on the conditions, it could be even more. Like, it's so I think people are more willing, to put in a bit more time, because, well, you actually have more time at the end of the day. It also should illustrate that it's not about the amount of hours you're sitting there, like how long you're at the job. It's more about the tasks that you're doing. If you work as like I don't know, say like a guard at a gate or something, sure, yeah, the time is kind of critical because you have shifts and you've got to be a guard at a gate during that time, because, well, you can't do it at a different time. But yeah, you're right. Like most, I easily more than half of the jobs out there, probably 75%, especially administrative stuff. Like, who cares when it happens? You could send an email in the middle of the night. You don't have to do it during the daytime. I mean,
Right.
You could do your spreadsheets and whatnot whenever. It doesn't matter the time. And half the problem with, the reason why there's such bad traffic around here is because of schedules, because it's that whole 9 to 5 thing, or 8 to 4 or whatever. Everybody feels like, oh, it's this conditioning thing. We're led to believe, oh, we've got to, everybody starts at this time and they stop at that time. And
or it's made to be necessary for no particular reason. Like, in order to cash these checks, I've got to be here during bank hours. Well, why do banks have hours? Like, why can't they just be open all the time or whatever?
Well, and considering that most banking is done digitally now, there's no reason for anything to happen during a set hour. I don't understand.
How come I can deposit a check with my cell phone, but there's like still jobs that require you to like go down to the bank and bring them the check or whatever, and it's like you can totally do that on your phone, right? Like from home.
Or from
take a batch of checks home with you and be like, all right, the bloop, 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 and there you go.
Or you could have a computer system that scans them. It could get a little more advanced than that, because I could see people being like, well, the fraud, that's an issue.
But then you have like, if you're a parent, you got to deal with school schedules, and like if your kid's sick and blah blah blah, you can't be at work, and then they're like, oh my God, things aren't getting done. And it's like all this, everything, productivity and time is all tied to money, and that's bullshit.
But
that's what's causing.
Well, here's the funny thing is, like, it has nothing to do with productivity. It, like, being there doesn't have anything to do with productivity. I think it's kind of like a self-delusion, like a mass cultural delusional state that we've all deceived ourselves into thinking over the course of a long time. Because back in the day, early days, you had people doing tasks and they did it whenever. If you're a farmer, well, you get up when the sun comes up and you stop when it gets dark, right? Like, you just work whenever there's daylight. And so the rotation of the earth dictated what you did. You didn't set a start and stop time. Well, there wasn't even really technically time then, at least in the sense that, like, watch kind of time where we can calculate it down to extreme precision. And maybe that's kind of a thing that might have actually bit us in the ass, going back to the ass comments from the beginning, that the development of precision timekeeping instruments has led us to all kind of hyper focus on time as being important, when it isn't. Like, it really is not important. A minute is not important.
As like, evidenced by our minute microscopies, which are like 99.9% never just a minute.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, time can be important when, say, I don't know, you're an EMT and there's somebody that just had a heart attack and you bring the defibrillator, right? Like, seconds count at that point. But in general, like a spreadsheet, working on a spreadsheet, time is not relevant whatsoever there, but we believe it is. And I think it goes back to school, where,
and so I get it to a degree. We don't work in a vacuum. Like, other people depend on our work. And having been a project manager, I can kind of see the big picture on this. It's like, if you're dragging your feet on a particular thing, you're holding up the entire project as a whole, right? Like, that's the choke point.
Yeah, and you got prerequisites, right, that have to be met.
Yeah, so you've got people like twiddling their thumbs who would rather be like getting stuff done, but they can't because you've twiddled your thumbs.
Yeah.
So like I do get the need for, like, if you're devoting yourself to a task, you should try to complete it as quickly as humanly possible with quality in mind.
Yeah.
And I think that's the important thing, not like a deadline. I don't think there should be deadlines necessarily. It should be focused more on like making sure you don't have to work hard, because I think that's a philosophy that we've been instilled with that's kind of bullshit. It's like, why should we have to work hard? We should just work and get money for it. Like, we don't have to be like, oh, I'm going to sacrifice more of my life than that guy over there so I can make more money than, like.
Well, you have a point there, and you'll probably have to remind me of earlier statements, but like the working hard thing, that like, oh yeah, you'll succeed if you work hard. Well, no, that's bullshit. You're right. It's totally bullshit. However, with some caveats or conditions, I guess, right? Simply working hard doesn't yield a product, doesn't yield results necessarily on its own. Just if you like, I have a dream and I'm going to work really hard to make it happen. No, that won't do it.
Yeah,
But
you work hard if you suck at something.
Well, yeah, you're right.
It takes more effort,
Yeah, you're correct. Now, there are some things that are difficult that do take a lot of sacrifice or a lot of effort. But the important thing is knowing what it is that you have to do and doing the things that you have to do, and learning from the past, right? If you are constantly struggling to do something, figuring out ways of increasing efficiency or removing difficulties is a really important thing. And that's something that should be encouraged in jobs, right? If you've got a bunch of people standing around because everything's done, well, that's a good thing. You are super efficient,
that's a great point. Like, the work hard philosophy is counterintuitive because it invites burnout, but the work efficient philosophy would yield the same or better results with a happier workforce.
Yeah, well, exactly, because for one, they're not struggling. They'd be feeling like some sense of accomplishment, and know in advance what to do, and maybe not be dreading having to do that one thing that really sucks because it's super hard. There's so many ways of improving things, and it does come down to psychology. I think a lot of our woes are born out of psychological conditions, states, I guess.
Like, I don't think I was okay. I'm going to say this with an asterisk. I don't think I was a particularly good project manager because I was pretty laid back, but that's not good in the eyes of like people who think, oh, the role of a project manager is to like work 80 hours a week from the time you get up until the time you go to bed, and weekends, and just make sure that everything is tickety boo, right? And I tried to do more prioritization, and kind of be like, well, that's not super important. I'm just gonna focus on the important things, and like, there's judgment calls that you have to make and stuff, and I think there's too much micromanagement going on in the corporate environment, that it's all about like these metrics, and things have to be done by the book, and every single little thing, and I'll admit that's my one gripe with regulation, is like everything having to be done exactly the same way every time with no consideration for nuance.
Yeah, I would be inclined to agree. As far as management goes, I think from a hierarchical standpoint, the lower down you are, the masses, basically, you're looking at things more on a micro level generally, or being more concerned with the micro stuff. And as you get further up, you're more concerned with the macro stuff, and neither side knows the other because they don't see it, right? You're on the bottom looking up, you're at the top looking down. Nobody understands it. And that's a huge problem. That actually, that's something that should be addressed, honestly. Like people being, managers and whatnot, executives being concerned with the numbers and stuff. Well, I mean, that's what they're tasked to do. But there's more to it than that. Like understanding why things happen and how they happen
it would be great if there were like company meetings that explain to people on the lower rungs how they play a big part in the big picture, like what they're doing and how it applies to everything. And and vice versa, like to allow people who are the C-level folks to see what kind of grunt work goes into their widget.
Well, yeah, and that's something I love about the whole what is it, there was some TV series where the owner of a company would work the regular person's job.
Undercover Boss or something.
Yeah. And now some companies that's not necessary because the person that runs the company did do that back in the day, so they're fully aware of how much work is involved in the
you
stuff.
You can forget though.
That's true. Well, yeah, you get enough yachts or enough millions, and you start forgetting. And I think it's important to be reminded of that, and to connect with people, because, and maybe this is something that could be a self-preservation tactic, I guess, that people feel like, well, if somebody underneath me, one of these new hires, has like really brilliant ideas, then nobody will want to listen to me. So they don't want to hear what people down in the bottom might have to say. And now, not every idea down in the bottom is going to be a good idea, but it could be. And because it's that bidirectional thing. Like if you can't see the opposite end of that system, then it's difficult to understand the big picture, I guess.
Yeah. I had one such experience. My first research job, I was just, the research associate, still green. And the vice president of research and development sat in on one of our meetings and said, we want new ideas. And so I spent my lunch break kind of brainstorming something, and I came up with an idea and I brought it to him and he loved it. And it made it all the way through a provisional patent application. I had my name on a patent application with just a bachelor's degree.
Nice.
And that's because somebody higher up listened to me and liked the idea and saw potential in it, which normally would never happen.
Or rarely, at least.
Yeah.
And that's a lesson for the executives and CEOs out there watching, because I know you do. I know you're watching, and I'm watching you. But for all those out there, it's a lesson. Like, it's important to take ideas from people, especially people like, I guess, who you could say like on the front lines, right? Toyota does that. The Toyota manufacturing philosophy, there's a name for it, which is escaping me right now, but that's why Toyota is hands down the best car manufacturer on the planet, is because of that conversation that happens in both directions, where the people working on the factory line are able to throw out some ideas. They're like, hey, I noticed this thing. And the CEOs, all the executives, they're like, willing to entertain those ideas and
Yeah.
listen. And that is a good example. If Toyota does that and they have become such a profitable and badass company as they have, well, that's probably something to emulate, like on every level, no matter what business you run.
That's another reason why it's good for everyone on the lower rungs to know the big picture, so that they know what to look out for as far as problems, right?
Yeah.
Like, like I briefly worked in manufacturing some airplane parts. So there was like strict FAA. You can tell I've been working with drugs lately. I said FDA. Strict FAA guidelines about like, having everything within like, quarter of an inch or something, like super tight regulation.
Tight
right?
specs. Yeah.
Yeah. And I caught a mistake before it went to QA, and I like got this award. It was like a fish that said catch of the day or whatever. And like, like they actually would kind of reward that sort of like admit your mistake and catch something before it becomes a problem sort of behavior, that's good.
Actually, no, that's a cool idea. And that's something that, it's not all about money.
Yeah. Instead of being like, hey, you fucked up, it's more like, hey, thanks for pointing that out. So it saved us a bunch of money.
Reward is far more effective than punishment. But having recognition that everybody can see, being the hero for the day, I guess, or whatever, being in the limelight or something, is really important. It doesn't cost you anything to give accolades to somebody who came up with a fantastic idea. And that's something that, hey, order a couple pizzas or something and whatever.
Here's your personal pan pizza.
Yeah, or just go to a trophy place, give somebody a little thing they can put on their shelf, or a plaque they could put on their wall or whatever. Just having recognition is an important thing. And, I should probably talk to the opposite end of it too. Like, if you have an idea that you think is really stellar, but maybe it isn't, and people dismiss it, like, that's okay. Don't be butthurt about it.
Well, it could spur someone else to have an idea based off of it.
It could, absolutely.
But if you never bring it up, then there's no conversation.
And that's the thing, is people don't want to lose face. They don't want to be seen as being a fool or something. No, be the fool. Be the idiot that tries every single possible permutation of something, because at some point you're going to figure out how to make an aircraft or a jet or a rocket or a spacecraft or something, like, or I don't know, some kind of warp drive. That's how those things happen.
Yeah.
Like it.
Well, I speak about this a lot. That's a lot of what analogical thinking is about, is thinking outside the box, using your personal experiences to come up with a unique solution to a problem that, if you don't speak up, other people probably will never come up with, because they don't have your culmination of experiences.
Yeah.
To come up with that idea, and maybe it'll sound dumb. Like I've brought up plenty of ideas and gotten these what the fuck looks like, like, you don't know what you're talking about, but here and there, I'm sure it spurred some other idea or got people talking about something, and maybe it led to a solution, maybe it didn't, but I mean, it didn't hurt anything.
No, it doesn't hurt if you come up with something that's like a completely ridiculous idea, but it does hurt if you never talk, never express your ideas. And I think that's something that is really important. Like, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to fail or look silly, because eventually you'll have the golden idea. And if somebody's running a company or whatever, or some kind of organization, yeah, it's important to listen to people who actually do the actual work. Like if you're somebody that sits in your own office all day, which I do, but I, listen to people that don't, people that are on the ground level that experience things and maybe have some really novel ideas you haven't thought of before. Because just because you have your own private office doesn't mean you know everything or have all the answers. In fact, chances are you probably don't. Yeah. Humility, I guess.
Huh. Yeah. I mean, I don't want to completely knock, the need for hard work or punctuality. Like they have their place, but it's a complete fallacy to just blanket apply that to every kind of labor, or to be like, if you punch the clock a minute late or whatever, that's that manufacturing job I had with the airplane parts. If you were a minute late, it was like the end of the fucking world. And there was like 2 computers to log in on with like a super long line. And it's like, how do you clock in on time? Like if you're at the end of that line.
I'm going to guess that manufacturing job was a 24-hour operation.
Close to, or at least there were some shifts that worked almost 24 hours. Yeah. Like,
I mean, if you're making a part that, well, okay, so you talked
that does make sense though, when you're paying rent on something huge like a factory, like make use of your time. And
sure, but people kill themselves every day trying to get to work on time, saving 1 minute. They kill themselves.
Yeah.
Which doesn't make any sense. Is your life more important than some part on a spacecraft or aircraft or something like that? But you'd mentioned deadlines before, and I guess deadlines make sense. Actually, a lot of things make sense in the right context, like punching a clock or whatever. If there's, let's say you're building parts for the next SpaceX vehicle or something, right? And it's launching on this date. They've scheduled a launch. Okay, there's an actual deadline. It's not arbitrary. It like they want to launch by this time, so you have to finish by that time. And so that's kind of the thing, is like, that's the end goal. It doesn't have.
You've got competitors and stuff like that you kind of want to stay ahead of it. I get all that. Yeah. But like to sacrifice the human element for the sake of making an extra buck, gives me excuse me out.
It does me as well. And that's something I think that should be important to people to consider, that there's always another job, there's always another business, you can always go do something different, but you only have one life. So don't work yourself to the bone, don't kill yourself like racing to work to just fuck it. If you miss the window, that's it. And honestly, it's a lot like dating. If you don't care, you'll do a lot better. And in fact,
you know what?
There's a scene, and I probably can't include it because it's probably too long for fair use, in Office Space, where the main character just doesn't care anymore, and all of a sudden, all of the high level people are like, "Oh, you have potential and stuff." It's like, yeah. The fact that he just literally doesn't care anymore is the one defining feature. Like, you could take it or leave it, and advice for people going into a job interview: adopt that principle in your mind. Like, you do not need this job. It doesn't matter. Whatever, kind of take a whatever stance, and guaranteed you'll get the job. It's worked for me so far. Anyway, sorry, I interrupted you.
Yeah, to play the devil's advocate though, like I do kind of see how like communication can be a speed bump if not everyone is working together on a same schedule. And I'm running into this a lot in my current job where without going into too many details about what I do and where I work, I'm assembling proteins and these are created by people smarter than I. But I will run into problems, and I feel like I could diagnose them better if I knew what the hell I was working on. But I'm basically just given a recipe effectively and said, make this and see what happens. And we want it as fast as possible, for no particular reason. And everyone just kind of comes and goes as they please, as their schedule dictates. It's very laid back. And I often find myself needing to troubleshoot a problem, and I've got no one to like hash things out with, and
yeah, that's a very valid concern, that a reason why like in-person meetings are so important.
mm-hmm.
People being around to talk,
and including people on like all levels,
yeah. That's really, really important. I mean, I completely agree with you about communicating, like disseminating information down through the ranks, so everybody's aware of kind of what's going on, even if they may not necessarily understand it. I think that's important to a point. That there could be an extreme of that where maybe it's too much information.
That's a great Duran Duran song, by the way.
Yeah. Oh, yes, it is. Oh, hell yeah. Good album too. Oh my god.
Yeah, one of my favorites, actually.
Yeah,
probably my favorite.
Such a good album. Oh man. Come Undone, I think, is my favorite song off of that album.
That's a good one. Femme Fatale.
Yeah.
Ordinary Worlds on there, and like, yeah, so many good ones.
There's that good album, but that has nothing to do with what we're talking about now. Or does it?
Oh yeah, it is a pretty ordinary world that everyone just goes to work like a drone and gets treated like shit.
Mm-hmm. Well, we do it to ourselves. That's the thing.
And we all come undone as a result. Because there's too much information.
Oh yeah. We do it to ourselves though. Like, no one's holding a gun to anybody's head and telling them to do this. We do it because we have this kind of sense that we're obligated to do it. That's what my dad did, or my mom did, or my grandparents or something. You just do those things, and that's what makes you a man, or whatever it might be. And well, that's exactly how you turn into a sheep who can be led around by any idiot. Like, that is a huge problem. This whole kind of what would be I guess this world that we've created, this virtual system that's completely made up. Like there's really very little reason to have the kind of structure that we have. But everybody takes it to heart. Everybody's concerned about things like, oh, I got to make money. I got to get there on time, got to whatever. But why? Why does any of that matter? It doesn't. It would be my argument. If you simply don't care and you let go, you'll be a lot happier and freer and less beholden to the system.
Yeah. I mean, I do appreciate work ethic in the sense that, like, if you can recognize when and where it's important to be a little more strict with yourself, like, oh, I should make this appointment on time because my presence is going to be the bottleneck for other people's productivity and stuff like that.
No, you're totally right.
Yeah.
Everybody is depending on you to do the prerequisite. That's fair.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
totally
But if
legit.
it's something that, like, you've got like 3 months to work on or whatever, you don't necessarily have to punch a clock every day as long as you get it done by then,
No, but if you have 3 months, I'll tell you what, here's a piece of advice. Do it now, bust your balls to get it done, and then fuck off for the rest of that time.
Yeah.
Like, don't do it at the last minute like you do in high school or college or whatever. Although there's something to be said for feverishly working to accomplish a task when you only have like a couple hours to get it done. Somehow there's something magical that happens with human minds where we're able to like create things that we would never think to create if we were relaxed. And maybe there's some value in that.
I'm the opposite though. I shut down. Like my brain gets overloaded and I'm like, what am I supposed to do? Like, what should I do? How should I prioritize this? I've only got like 5 minutes left and I've got like 3 days worth of work to do or whatever. It's like, and I just stand there being like,
I totally understand that. And, if you're one of those people, maybe like, because everybody is different. And that's one of the problems with systems of employment is that they kind of
treat everyone the same.
Yeah. Like, oh, everybody behaves the same way. That's a huge problem. No, everybody behaves different. And if you're a manager, that should be your job, is playing to people's skills, like what makes them best and encouraging them. That's a good manager. And I've had some good managers in the past that actually do that.
Play your strengths and accommodate your weaknesses.
Yeah, exactly.
Build a team that kind of fills all the gaps, that sort of thing.
Because no one person is going to be all of those things. Well, that probably explains why I'm non-monogamous. Yeah. Yeah.
Every now and then you find someone that hits those characteristics.
That's true, but they don't have to be the only person.
It is rare.
Yeah. It's very, very, yeah. Like a lot of these things that have been brought up are not only reasons I'm non-monogamous, but also why I'm an anarchist. But that might be, well, we're already 3/4 of an hour in, and that's too big a topic to crunch. It
is an interesting angle to go down, like the idea that everyone can be treated equally. And actually we have this in the list to talk about equity versus equality. Like treating everyone the same isn't exactly always the right thing to do.
No, you're absolutely right, because if you apply the exact same set of rules to every person, you're going to get a different outcome every time.
Yeah.
And I mean, yeah, I guess it's easy and fair. It's as fair as it can be for being as easy
fair
as
from whose perspective?
well, fair from just a general sense, like fair as it can be for how easy it is. You start getting into outcomes, like everybody having the same outcome, then it gets more complex. Like how do you achieve that? Because you have to understand every single variable, every single person, all the situations. It's impossible. So to me, I think the whole equality stance is fair, but I get the equity side of things, that the goal should be to achieve the same results unilaterally, that everybody wins essentially. And we're never going to get there. We can't.
Yeah.
But the
way I think of it is the equality is the goal, but equity is the means.
Well, yeah, and understand that it is impossible to have that, but it's a goal worth attempting.
Right.
That we should be trying to figure out people's strengths and shortcomings and put them in the correct places. Well, honestly, I think we could put ourselves in those places if we weren't dumbed down by shitty public schooling. That taught us that we have to be, react to bells ringing, punch a clock, and worry about money and stuff like that. That is half the problem, and it's a difficult hurdle to overcome. But it's worthy of the attempt, I think. I mean, for the people who are willing to actually put that effort in, not everybody. Don't kill yourself trying to make the world better if you don't have it in you. It's okay. It's okay to just be a farmer or something. That's fine. Or be a plumber. Worst job ever, by the way.
You just gave me an idea. Like if we ever had like a brick and mortar kitchen sink university or something, it might be an interesting philosophy to have a bell that says, hey, it's time to move on to your next class, but you don't necessarily have to adhere to it. Like if you've entered into a deep conversation in your English class or something, and you're about to make some kind of literary breakthrough in, something that means a lot to you, and you can catch up with math or whatever. Like, it's not a big deal if you just hang around and continue that conversation. Just have like a laissez-faire attitude, but still the structure,
Ooh, man, that is good.
Because you do have to have some structure, right? Like
Sure.
You're not really going to fit everything in for everyone and herd them all around effectively if you don't have some structure. But if you like hold fast to it, you're stifling so much creativity and learning.
And if you do things right, you don't have to herd anybody. They will happily do the things that are necessary on their own.
Yeah. I had a professor in community college, of all things, that was a stickler for punctuality. And she would lock the door as soon as, whatever class time start was. She'd walk over, lock the doors. And invariably somebody would always show up and like knock on the door and be like, can I get in? Because they're paying their money to take the class, right? And she would be like, this is distracting the class. This is why you shouldn't be late. And one day I was just like, you're distracting the class by calling attention to this, whereas they could just walk in and take their seat and catch up.
Yep. Nice. Ballsy. And that's the
Yeah.
thing. Stand up for yourself, stand up for other people. You know, don't be a doormat.
Mm-hmm.
That
I mean,
that
I've always like been irked by injustices, like even as a kid, and
Mhm.
I've never been afraid to like call bullshit out when I see it. But that was one instance that really stuck out. Like I still appreciated the importance of punctuality, but that was like way overboard. That was neurotic.
Yeah. Yeah, that's over the top. I mean, and that's part of the conditioning, the ever evolving conditioning, because maybe there are jobs where time is of the essence, but not all the jobs are like that. Not all the work that you're going to do is time based. But if you grow up in a world where that is a thing and you're going to be punished or ridiculed for transgressions, well, then that will affect you. It will mold you into somebody who is super focused on time as being the biggest thing. Like, and I asked myself, like, 300 years ago, would 5 minutes matter? No, because people used like sundials, at least during the day. And during the night, I mean, they just kind of guessed. Like, time didn't really matter that much. And it's only because of stuff like this where we can accurately catalog time that those seconds count. Where somebody looks and they're like, oh, it's rolled over, double zeros. Okay, time to lock the door.
Yeah.
Like, that would never happen back in the day. So how is that a normal thing? It is totally artificial.
Yeah.
And yeah, man, I'm about to get pumped up here. So I'm gonna have some beer, chill out a bit.
Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely like a lot of pressure placed on time and money, like it all comes down to the bottom line or whatever.
Well, time and money are correlated as far as a lot of people are concerned.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
But both are made up.
they are. Well, not necessarily money, kinda. At least today. Well, I guess in a way, it's all made up.
Yeah, it's made up.
Well, when you're talking fiat, it's totally made up. Like, there's nothing.
I mean, the concept of it is entirely made up, though. Like, and I mean, not to say that it doesn't have like a valid purpose, but it is something that isn't just like naturally a tangible thing that we can point to, like an element. It's
Well, even if it's gold or silver or something, the only thing that gives those things value is us. We ascribe that value to those things because we want them, because they're scarce. Yeah, money as a store of value in some sense, like work or whatever, a medium of exchange, that's really important for us humans. um but it really doesn't matter. It's all made up, especially the dollar, any fiat currency. The only thing holding it up is faith. And you can see how well that works for the church. That's not to say like you should dismiss it or not totally not care. I mean, it's the coin of the realm. You have to pay your dues one way or another. Well, we're expected to pay our dues one way or another. So you have to find a way to do that, and whatever medium that somebody is expecting in exchange is what you have to provide. You can object all you like, but you have to have bigger guns to do that.
Guns are made up too.
Ooh, well, are they really?
Hey, you mean to destroy me?
No, not at all. Never.
You meant to destroy your webcam.
The webcam, yep, exactly. Kind of sick, actually. Man,
Yeah, there's a whole lot of rabbit holes to go down.
I was just thinking the same thing. Like this topic that you brought up is like a web of all kinds of really interesting and important things, like seriously important, not only for productivity and the bottom line and running businesses and how to work at a job and stuff like that, but survival of the human race ultimately. Like it all comes back to that central point, which I haven't figured out yet, but I'll have it all worked out by the time we reach the frontier.
The final frontier. These are the voyages of Kitchen Sink by Cross.
That was a quote from The Last Starfighter. Good movie, by the way. Oh man, I'm gonna have to like post another raise the debt ceiling rap video because they're about to do that. And I was thinking about doing a minute microscopy about this, actually, like how the federal government, they could just like, well, we can take on more debt, but you and I, well, we can't do that. Like,
I don't know. I feel like we're at a point technologically and sociologically and where we could have post-scarcity if we just stopped giving a shit about money and just said, whoever needs whatever, let's make it happen. And I don't know. I think we could just get rid of money. And with that goes all this like dependency on time and punching clocks.
No, we don't have to get rid of money. It's the perception of the value of money that's the problem. Like money is a medium of exchange, first and foremost. It's a way that I, as a sheep herder, can herd sheep and shear them, and I can sell the wool, and then I can take that and convert it into something that you'll take to give me bread.
But you only need that because of scarcity. Like if you could just have whatever you want, there's no point in having to build up and save up something that you can exchange in order to get that thing, right?
Maybe. Well, I don't know that we're quite there yet. Like that's one of the things that I've always been all about, is like the game changer in Star Trek was the replicator.
Right.
That's it. That was the final thing that turned everything around. Like if we have a replicator, and now we've got 3D printers getting close.
3D printed houses are becoming a thing.
Yeah. Like it's getting close. We're not quite there yet. So I wouldn't necessarily throw away all your money, whatever money you have right now. We might be a long way off. There's probably,
but the philosophy is we work to survive. We survive by paying for things that we need to survive. If you just say, hey, if you walk into a store and say, hey, these are the things I need to survive, and they just hand them to you, and you just go to work so that you can provide things that other people need, like you're still at a net zero, right? Like
No,
you're in the exact same place you were.
You're totally right. However, the government yet again rears its ugly head. Those stores that you go into have to pay property tax or whatever, like sales tax and stuff like that. There's fees they have to cover that are coin of the realm.
Well,
and
here's the thing, though: the government utilizes the private sector, and the private sector, and all of us effectively rely on them to do certain things. It's just another medium of exchange. It's just another price point. Like, it's really no different than a business to individual interaction. Like, the government is just another business.
Well, sure, except for the fact that they have a license to kill. So there is that. No, you're really onto something there. Man, that's I feel like this is a bigger topic than can be covered in the time that we have.
It is. Yeah.
Man.
I think it kind of fits, but it's probably a continuation.
Well, and as is our way, we'll come back to it. This is something I think that I think we both agree on the philosophical core of things, maybe not necessarily in implementation, but the thing is, like, neither you nor I know the right way to do things. And through discussion and analysis of how things work, we'll maybe hopefully find a way. That's my hope.
Yeah.
Like, I always say I'm an idiot. I don't know shit.
I mean, people always say, like, no one will be a doctor if they can't afford a yacht, but it's like, why does the yacht cost so much? Like, if you think about it, it's just a giant fucking boat, like,
well,
like materials and labor. Like, if you really like calculated it pound for pound for what you would pay for a smaller boat, I guarantee you it's not 1-to-1 ratio.
Well, if you calculate it for pound, like, why is the same weight as a yacht of lead worth less than that yacht?
Yeah, like, the whole idea of value makes no sense to me. It boggles the mind. Like, I understand individual personal value, but to slap a price tag on it and assume that that's the value to every single person is ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, that's supply and demand curves at work there. But
it's effectively the same idea that we've been talking about, though. It's applying the same thing to everybody. It's expecting the same labor and work ethic from every single person. You're expecting the same valuation from every single person.
You can't necessarily say that one person's labor is equivalent to another person's labor.
Right. It's like people who say, oh, I would never spend $250 on a Seahawks ticket. But some people are like, oh, that's a bargain. Like,
well, that's a supply and demand thing at work. And, speaking of, like, doctors and yachts and stuff, at the end of the day, everything is just matter and energy with a vector. So what's the difference? Like, I mean, I don't want to get too deep and nihilistic, but I mean, that's really is.
Yeah, like, you just broke the world down into an equation, bro.
I think I did. But here's the thing: if you go down that path, which I have, and get down to nothing, and then start looking up, things make a lot more sense. that's the point I'm trying to make here. Is like, just the best thing you could do is just don't give a shit. Start there and then work up from that point. I don't know if that's good advice though. I think it might be, but oh man.
I wonder if I should have a fourth beer or if we should just wrap up.
We're about an hour in, so
yeah, I only had 3.5 hours of sleep. So
yeah, you should probably get some sleep. That's another thing. Sleep is really important.
Yeah, and we, because of work, we don't get enough.
Yeah, that's true. People set alarms and get up and like scramble. I was just thinking that, like throwing in that Red Dwarf clip.
Yeah, that'd be great, man, with eggs and toast.
Oh man.
Well, I guess scrambled is eggs. Anyway.
Yeah.
Bacon and toast. That's what he said. Anyway, I'm tired.
Yeah, people struggle, like, just getting to work and stuff, like working for the man essentially. And there's all these people, and election time comes around and everybody's like, oh, you gotta elect this person or that person, all these campaign signs and all this stuff, and all these fuckers who don't know your name, who, if you met them on the street, they would call security. Yet people check a checkbox happily, thinking they're making a difference in the world. No, the difference starts right here with you. That's my, I guess it's
knowing is half the battle.
Yeah, it's my G.I. Joe saying.
The more you know.
Oh yeah, we should do like some KSM G.I. Joe PSAs. Oh man.
Well, that was a really good one.
I think so. Like, what a good topic to
that's something that everyone can like relate to, because everybody has to work, and
even the CEOs and the executives, like,
yeah. Well, hopefully it's like a light bulb moment for both the top of the rung and the bottom of the rung, like to look at other perspectives and think about how what they do affects the big picture.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and you know, when the zombie apocalypse happens, your brains are just as tasty as the next guy. It doesn't matter how much money you have. You know, like, I will never forget, like, a thing that really affected me when I was a kid and sticks with me to this day is the old 50s War of the Worlds movie. And they're down there in the city, everybody's like scrambling, running away, and trying to hop on buses and stuff as the alien invasion force, the Martians, are coming in. And this guy in a suit and briefcase, he's like, I've got money, I'll give you anything, I give you all the money I have, you know. And people just like trample him, and his briefcase flies open and all his money just flutters away into the wind.
Yeah.
And I was like, huh, yeah, that wow, just wow, like mind blown.
Yeah, that's, I mean, that goes to show how fleeting our concoctions of things like value are. You know, like we try to quantify and create tangible representations of things that we've made up. But what really matters at the end of the day is how we feel, our mental health, our emotional health. Like, do we have time for our hobbies? Do we have time for our families? Do we have time to relax and recharge? Or are we like beholden to the schedule and the like to-do list provided by our employers?
Yeah. Are we just a cog in the machine? You
Mhm.
know, like, man, and life is the most valuable asset that we have. Nothing comes close. Like, this is something I've thought about too. Like, if you were told you only had a certain amount of time left on planet Earth, how much would you pay? Let's say you had all the money in the world. How much would you pay to live another day? That's what your hours are actually worth.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, you can't demand that, because, yeah, a planet's ransom per hour isn't going to fly. But it's something to think about. Like, you know, what is your life worth? How much of your life do you fritter away doing nonsense stuff when you could be doing something epic? Not to say that recreation is useless. Like, it's actually really, really important. Just sloughing off and sitting around is pretty important, pretty valuable.
Yeah.
But it should be understood that, like, how valuable those things are. Like, you should not treat your time on this earth lightly. And nor should you treat someone else's time on this earth lightly, even if you don't know them.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That goes for everybody, homeless to CEO.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Oh man, did we just solve the world's problems in one episode?
Probably. Yeah, but no one's watching, so yeah.
Well, they will.
Someone will discover this a couple centuries from now.
They'll be like, "Oh my god,
Remember the internet? Like, let's look at the internet, dude."
They unearth like a dusty hard drive and like dust it off, and holy shit, wow.
Imagine that. Imagine a time when they say, "Remember the internet." I mean, Star Trek didn't have internet, right? Like, they just magically had like information sharing, like wirelessly everywhere. There was no providers or whatever. Like,
mm-hmm. Oh man.
Now we're going down another.
Yep, I was gonna say, like,
somebody shut us up, Jesus Christ.
I think we've covered enough. Like, there's so many things. There were notes that I written down that I've just ignored because this has been a really good topic. Like, probably one of the best topics. Oh man,
this has been a damn good season.
It has. Yeah. Man. God,
I urge people to check out all the rest of season 3. Well, maybe the last one was kind of I was a little checked out. That's my fault.
It's okay. You know, you got your good days, you got your bad days. Yeah. I mean, that's one thing about us is we're human.
Yeah. But we still put an episode out every goddamn week. So
not only just an episode, but a minute microscopy too.
That's right. Yeah.
Bang on time and go watching the clock, you know. Well, I think we've talked long enough about this. So yeah, if you have ideas or something struck a chord, like discuss it down there in the comment section. I'm sure we're going to come back to this because I don't feel like this is a finite topic. I think this is kind of the ultimate topic. If you're a human, that is. Andorians welcome.
Yeah.
And Klingons.
Dogs and cats.
Living together. Mass hysteria.
Cockroaches. Ashcroft.
Ashcroft. Oh, man. There's so many clips like I think should be thrown into this episode. I'm sure that one might fly. We could probably do that one without a copyright strike.
It'd be cool if we had those guys on the show. Day Job Orchestra.
Day Job Orchestra.
They do some funny shit.
Mm-hmm.
It would be cool if they took our episodes and like dubbed over them.
Oh,
please do that.
Yeah, that would be the ultimate in like flattery. You know, like, oh my god.
We should totally submit this episode to them and be like, do this.
Oh man.
Spreading the YouTube love.
Exactly.
All right. We've as we always do, we've dragged out our ending like 10, 15 minutes. So
yeah, about 15 minutes. Yeah.
Well, thanks for deep sink diving with us into work ethic and the dark side of the moon of work ethic, you know, like taking care of yourself.
The value of money, like why we work, how we work, punching clocks, time. Holy shit.
What is time? What is money?
What
is love? Baby, don't hurt me.
Oh man. Okay, we can't throw that in because we're gonna get a strike for that one.
But we can be like
oh man. Well, I hope everybody enjoyed this topic as much as we did. Clearly we did, and yeah. So thanks for deep sink diving with us as usual.
Bon voyage.